Hi guys, I'm Gasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to talk about books and horror. And today I'm here to let you know some of the new releases coming out in February 2023.
It's coffee time.
As per usual, I have tried to put together a list that has a little bit of everything when it comes to genres, and specifically, of course, horror and thriller. And these are all books that are coming out in February 2023. As always, as well, some of the dates might change depending on countries, because not all publishers release books at the same time in every country. But this is what I have been able to find as a standard release date for these books. I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis of the books and see if it sparks your interest. I have a list of 18 new releases for February, so let's dive into it. First, let's talk about One Girl in All the Universe by Kendara Blake, and this is the second book on a series that just started last year, that it's supposed to be a kind of homage, you know, to Buffy. It is based on the same universe, but we have the new generation, we have the younger generation of vampire slayers, and the first book was a lot of fun, and I did love to see some of the old characters from the TV show appear in the pages of the book. So I feel like if you're a fan of the TV show, you probably will really enjoy this one. The first book was called In Every Generation, but also please keep in mind that this is a YA book, so they are YA books in case you were hoping for something a little bit more adult. These are for YA readers, but I still had a lot of fun, so I still feel like if you love the universe, even if you don't normally read YA, just give this one a shot. So since this is the second book on the series, obviously there is not much that I can tell you, but it does take off after the events of the first book. And what you can expect from this book, honestly, it's just a lot of fun and vampire slaying, of course. The talk about monsters and vampires and the training of vampire slayers, so it is a lot of fun if you are a huge fan of Buffy. I feel like even if you are not really familiar with Buffy, you could read this series, but of course there's a lot of, you know, hints and Easter eggs and characters that you might not be familiar with, that people like me or other people that have seen the show a couple of times, you know, we might get a lot more from these books. Moving on to another YA book, but this time it is a mystery thriller, and it is called A Game of Life or Death by Triona Campbell. We follow 16-year-old Asha, and her world just crumbles because she discovers the dead body of her sister in their own home. She's desperate for answers. She wants to know what happened to her sister, and she decides to turn to the help of hackers to try to figure out what happened to her sister. It sounds really interesting to me. I love that they're adding technology a little bit here as well as the investigation, and it sounds actually like it's gonna be a good time. I do want to read more YA thrillers this year, so this might be one that I have to put at the top of my list. Our next book is for people looking for a gothic adult horror, and we have The Spite House by Johnny Compton. Our main character Eric is running away from his past, and he has left everything behind: his wife, his house, his job. So he's basically moving around a lot, which makes it really complicated for him to have you know, good experience with jobs, and struggles to find work because obviously he's moving so much that he doesn't have like a stable job for a long time, and he is currently really struggling to make just month's end. And then he discovers an ad for a place called Mason House, and the ad sounds a little bit too good to be true, which we all know it probably is, bruh. So in this case, he finds an ad and they're looking for a caretaker of this place. Apparently nobody wants to take the job because this is supposed to be a super haunted house, so like I get why people are a little bit put off by it. The new owner basically wants to find proof that there is something hunting the place. So he's looking for someone that can collect the information for him, and they're trying to basically prove that this place is haunted. I guess he expects that that's going to help him sell the place better. I'm really excited because this sounds like a lot of fun, and I always love books where they're trying to, you know, prove, or where they are paranormal investigators in a place and they're trying to see if there is any ghost hunting the place and why and who died there, and it's always so much fun to just discover the past of these like haunted places. The next book, when I saw the cover, I was like, I'm gonna need this book just based purely on the cover because it is amazing, at least to me, and that is Wasps in the Ice Cream by Tim McGregor, and this is adult horror. We are in the summer of 1987, so we are also in the 80s, so hello, yes, thank you, please very much, I'm gonna need this book. And some of the kids decide to pull a prank on two weird sisters, and Mark is one of the kids that he kind of gives in by peer pressure and he joins in the prank. But Mark is kind of feeling guilty, so he kind of wants to make up with the sisters and kind of apologize for it. They end up bonding over books and loneliness, and you get what I'm saying, like this book really speaks to me. And then even the sisters invite Mark for a seance. Need I say more? Like, this is gonna be a must read for me. Moving on with more adult horror, but this time also including queer characters, we have Such Pretty Flowers by K.L. Serra. Holly received a message from her brother Dane right before he died, and the police has ruled out the death as a suicide, but the sister is not so sure that that is exactly what happened. And Holly knows that according to the message she received, apparently her brother Dane was planning to play kind of a game with her girlfriend at the time, and she starts to think that maybe they did play the game and something went terribly wrong. So obviously Holly needs to know what happened, and she starts trying to, you know, dig into what could have happened to her brother. This one sounds also amazing. Too many things sound really good for February, and I don't know what to do because too many releases, too little time to read them all, and also not enough money to buy them all. The next one is a book on a series, and I have not read the first book, but I know some people really love the author and the series of books, and that is by Darcy Coates. You know, she the queen of paranormal and mystery thrillers, and this one is called The Twisted Dead, and it is number 3 book on the Gravekeeper series. The first one was called The Whispering Dead. Like I say, it's paranormal mystery thriller. The first one followed the story of a gravekeeper that lives in the premises of an kind of abandoned cemetery, if I remember correctly, and you can expect obviously a really eerie, good atmosphere. I feel like Darcy Coates, she manages to create such good atmospheric novels, and that is part of why people really enjoy to read her books, because she really transports you to a really kind of eerie, unsettling place, and it's putting the reader already in a kind of an alert mood, and she does the paranormal, ghost and huntings so well. So if it's something that you're interested in and you've never read Darcy Coates, you should. The next one, even though it is more of an adult fantasy, it does have witches, so I wanted to mention it here in case somebody is looking to read something about witches, even if it's not pure on horror, because I, you know, for one, really do enjoy books about witches, even if they are not purely horror. And it is called Venko by Sherry DeMaline. I hope that was correct. So Lucky lives with her grandmother, and unfortunately they are being threatened to be evicted from the apartment where they're currently living. And also Lucky makes an interesting discovery on the walls of the place, and that is a silver spoon. In that silver spoon there is something engraved, and that is the word Salem. So I am assuming here that maybe, you know, Lucky has a connection with witches that she is unaware of. I'm just really excited about this one as well, because I do love books about witches and I don't read that many. So this might be one that I also need to get to. And now let's go to more YA horror. We have The Raven by Dani Lamia. Rebecca is going to a prestigious private school, but unfortunately she's not having a good time. She's being bullied. She doesn't really connect with anybody there, and people are just really cruel and mean to her. And instead of standing up for herself, she kind of goes into the darkness and she starts having some nightmares. And then in one of her dreams, the Raven, a creature, gives her the chance to kind of seek revenge on the people that are making her life miserable. She thinks it's just a dream, there's nothing to lose, but then she realizes that everything that happens in her dreams has some sort of consequences in the real world. So this one sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm really intrigued as well by this one. And now let's go to a horror mystery thriller for people looking for some thriller books in 2023. We have The Stranger in Our House by Sarah A. Denzel. What would you do if your son would become a stranger overnight? That is the opening line of the synopsis, and it's already intriguing to me. So a family is looking for a fresh start and decides to move from the city to somewhere in the countryside to a cottage with their 2 kids. That is until 15-year-old Noah disappears in the woods for a couple of days, and when they find him, he doesn't know what happened to him, why he has certain wounds in his body. He just doesn't remember what happened those 3 days that he was gone. And he also has a little bit of trouble adapting again to his regular life and to be actually himself again. It's almost like the new version of Noah is just really harsh and almost like a stranger to everybody. So if you're looking for a thriller, this one actually sounds really good to me. I love when people disappear and come back and they don't know what happened to them, because then it's all that mystery added to it and we want to know what happened. So I really love this kind of trope. Now let's go to another book on a series that I know it's been highly anticipated, and this is a horror adult, and that is Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. This is book 2 in the Lake Witch trilogy, and it comes after My Heart is a Chainsaw. I did read that one and I really enjoyed it, so I am excited to dive into book 2. We do take off after the events of the first book, so obviously you do have to read the first one first. I remember the first book had these kind of really strong female lead that loved horror, and it had a lot of bits and pieces of talk about horror movies and horror in general and the horror tropes, and I really loved it. So I'm really excited to dive into book 2. I feel like if you have not had the chance yet to get into My Heart is a Chainsaw, now is the perfect opportunity before book 2 comes out. The next one is a non-fiction, and it's probably the book that I am the most excited about that it's coming out in February, because it is about horror in general, and it's called The Black Guy Dies First: Black Horror Cinema from Father to Oscar by Robin R. Means Coleman and Mark H. Harris. It is a guide and kind of going through the history of black horror and following up to the amazing success that really deserved for Get Out, for Lovecraft Country, and for Candyman. It goes over, you know, themes and tropes that have characterized black characters in horror, and I'm just here for it. I think this is going to be amazing, and I haven't read a non-fiction in a while, so this one I really need to get my hands into. And now let's move on to fantasy horror. For all of you guys that apart from horror enjoy some fantasy, I have for you Sister Maiden Monster by Lucy A. Snyder. It follows the story of 3 women that have survived what could be considered an apocalypse, because there is a virus spreading around the world that is changing people, and we follow 3 women that have been able to so far survive. And going back to YA horror, we have Where Darkness Blooms by Andrea Hanna. And this is a supernatural thriller about a place where women tend to go missing. So when 3 more women disappear in just one night, people in this town don't even blink an eye because they're kind of used to it. But I'm like, shouldn't we be looking for answers here? Shouldn't we be looking into it? No. So apparently the mothers of the missing girls are, you know, having some sort of like ceremony to honor them. And then some secrets come out to life. So this one sounds quite intriguing. And for all of you guys that are looking for a new short horror stories compilation, there's something coming out in February called The Best of Our Past, The Worst of Our Future by Christy Noggle. And this is what is considered quiet horror or slow horror, so it is for all of you boos out there that love really subtle horror elements in your reads and not full on basically in your face horror. These are psychological and supernatural horror stories. Again, it's quiet horror. So I'm quite of intrigued because sometimes less is more, not always, depending what you're looking for, what you're in the mood for, but I have been really intrigued about this subgenre of horror. And we have yet another sequel, and this one is also from a book that I have not read, but I have on my list because I've always been intrigued by this one as well, and that is The Destroyer of Worlds by Matt Ruff, and it is the second book after Lovecraft Country, and this one is horror fantasy. I also still really want to watch the TV show. but I kind of have been waiting because I want to read the book first. And we are in Chicago in 1954, and after his father goes missing, a 22-year-old decides to start a road trip to find him, and he's going to have to struggle with the white terrors of America. And this is a story that I've always been really intrigued about and that I've wanted to read, but I still haven't had the chance. Let me know down below if you read it and you loved it, and also how the TV show compares to the book. And now let's go to some queer horror YA, and this one sounds also amazing, and I love this cover so much. It's called She Is a Hunting by Trang Tan Tran. This one is said to be for fans of Mexican Gothic, and I loved Mexican Gothic, so I might need to get my hands into this one as well. February is going to break my bank account, so raise up your hands if you're in it with me. So Jade arrives to Vietnam to visit her estranged father, and what she wants with this visit is basically to get the money that he promised her so that she can pay for her college tuition. But the house she's staying in has other plans for her. She wakes up paralyzed. She has some visions. There's things, really weird things going on around her, and I'm all here for it. I am just so intrigued about this one. Also, it's set in Vietnam, and I don't read many books that are set in countries like that, so I am just pumped for this. And continuing with YA, we have YA paranormal horror, and this one is Delicious Monsters by Liselle Sambury. This is a psychological thriller supposed to be a mix between The House on Haunted Hill and Sadie. So I still have not read Sadie, but I do want to, and I am intrigued again about this mix. It follows two teen girls that are investigating a mansion 10 years apart from each other. So it is a mysterious mansion, and we have two teenage girls 10 years apart investigating the same place. I love the dual timeline. I do love it, if done right, of course. So I'm super excited. I love when people are investigating places or murders, but like with different timelines in different times, like years. And I don't know, I just love that, and to see how they come to their own conclusions, maybe to the same one at the end of the book. I just love that. And we're going to end it with adult horror, and we have The Monsters in Our Shadows by Edward J. Sembal. And we are here again at the verge of the end of humankind. There has been some monsters that have invaded the earth, and they basically nearly wiped out the whole population. And it has been a century since that, so we're following basically the people, the civilization that was able to survive and regroup and kind of, I guess, learn how to protect themselves against those monsters. So we're going to see how humankind is desperately trying to still stay alive and probably trying to find a way to kill those monsters outside of the walls of the new cities that they've built. So if it's something that you're interested in, this one is coming out at the end of the month, and that was the last one that I had for you for this month. Alright guys, so those were all the books that I had on my list that are coming out in February 2023. Let me know down below if you are highly anticipating any of these, and if there's any other ones I didn't mention that are coming out that you think we all might enjoy, so you know we get more recommendations in the comments from you guys. Thank you as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next coffee time. Bye!